Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me at the back? Is the sound all right? Yeah. Okay, so I think a couple of weeks ago I got an email from the organizers saying that we want you to come and talk to students from disadvantaged backgrounds to encourage them to apply for higher education. So I imagine that I'll be in a classroom talking to like 20 students. But here I think there are like, I don't know, 2 million of you or something. So yeah, I wasn't really prepared for this. In fact, I didn't know we were going to be at an auditorium until I saw the pamphlet just like an hour ago. But I'm really glad to be here. I'm really happy to see so many people. And it also kind of helps me because otherwise I'll have to like talk to each of you individually. Now I can like talk to so many people at once. So basically, I was just talking to some students yesterday, and there something came up which I thought might be the first point that I should make about applying to Harvard or anywhere. So one of the biggest issues that I think that people have, especially in marginalized sections, Dalit community or any other form of disadvantaged marginalized students, is that some of this discrimination actually becomes internalized. So the example is, for example, when I was in school, I went to a very good school actually, but because I went to a good school, people didn't want me there. I had to face the usual sorts of discrimination. So people would say things like, oh, you people are not suitable for education, you shouldn't even be here. You people should be on the farm, or you should be taking care of buffaloes. So when people keep saying that to you over and over again, what happens after a certain time is you kind of internalize it. Then they don't have to tell you anymore. They don't have to say you're stupid. You just start thinking I'm stupid. So I've seen that happen to like a lot of my friends. By the time we got to like 7th or 8th grade, a lot of students would joke, like I would say, we have an exam tomorrow, why aren't you reading? And they would say things like, we are not suitable for education, like we shouldn't be here. They say it as a joke, but it kind of becomes real. So I think the first and the biggest thing that I would like to tell you all, whoever is interested in pursuing anything big, is that go inside and look at that self-doubt and get that out. Go within yourself and find that confidence. Because so I will tell you a little bit more about my experience at Harvard, and that will make some of these things clearer. But no matter what situation you're in, I don't know if you'll go to pursue a PhD or something, but you can do a lot more than you think you're capable of. That much should be obvious to you. If it's not, go within and make it obvious, because that's the starting point. Until you kind of believe it yourself, nobody else is going to believe you, and you probably won't do anything. You might, but it's exceptionally unlikely. So that's the first piece of advice. And the second thing is, maybe I'll tell you a little bit about, actually, I'm not sure. I spoke about my experience of how I went to Harvard before, but I'm a little worried that instead of motivating you, I might actually discourage you, because my story is a little, everything here is unconventional, but mine is a little bit more unconventional. But it'll at least show you that what you may have thought of as the usual Harvard PhD candidate may not be true, because so before I applied, kind of like Anurag's experience, 2 years before I applied, I had no idea that I would. I just did not think it was possible. In fact, by the time I finished my master's in economics in JNU, I began to think that it's already too late. That, most of my friends who were pursuing PhDs they all had better grades than I did. They already knew their plans, they already had their research ideas, and they were asking for letters of recommendation. I did not even know any professor well enough to ask for a letter of recommendation. So I thought, it's over, this is not going to happen. And yet, a couple of years later, it happened. So, okay, let me just start with my story. So, I was working as an energy analyst, as you heard, And there is this entrance exam called the GRE that people take in order to, go abroad for masters or PhD programs. And I only took that exam because in that year, the GRE changed its pattern and they gave a 50% discount. So the first cohort, the first 2 months of the new exam was at a 50% discount. So I thought, if I'm ever going to take the exam, this is the time, because so that's why I took the exam. And at that point I had no plans of applying for a PhD. But most JNU students like to say that, I don't want corporate job, I'm the intellectual type, I want to go to a PhD. So I was also saying that. I didn't really mean it, but I thought this is a nice thing to say because it sounded better. And so I took my GRE. The score was alright. I mean, again, I know many people will ask you what is my score, but I'm not going to tell you because that's not important. Like, you can go to any website and look at the university websites. They will tell you that you can email them, they'll reply saying that we don't have any minimum score requirements. And that's true. It's actually true. So, and I thought, okay, the GRE is done, now what? Then I looked at a couple of websites and I looked at several courses. I looked at everything from, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, economics. Even though I'm a master's in economics, I looked at everything else. I even looked at communication studies. And then I started asking people, so what should I do now? And they were like, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. So they said, you figure out what you want to do and then, maybe we can help you. So one of my friends said that you should apply for anthropology. I said, what is anthropology? Why will I apply for anthropology? He said, another friend of mine applied for anthropology, is in the US doing anthropology. I said, so what? I'm an economics student. Why will I apply for anthropology? Anyways, he said that, and then when I went home, some of my friends were preparing for the civil services and they had anthropology material. So I started looking at it. And at that time, I also went to a bookstore and I bought a couple of books. One of them was called Anthropology. So it's like an introductory book. I took that home, I read it, and then I became a little bit interested in it. So I thought, let's just write a draft application. I thought I'll write one for anthropology, I'll also write one for psychology and communication studies and public policy. But by then I started losing interest in economics because I had already done some work and I was looking at all the research being done by economists and I was like really bored with it. So I asked myself, if I could go to like the best university ever and if I was not concerned about finding a job, what would I do? And then eventually I decided anthropology and psychology are good options. So I thought I'll write all these applications and see what happens. But what ended up was happening was that I just wrote my application for anthropology and then I got tired. I said, this is enough. Now I'll just send this in and see what happens. So I would like to tell you a story about how since childhood I always wanted to be an anthropologist and I was driven and that I wanted to change society and that, that's why I'm in front of you, but that's not true. And I'm worried that I might actually discourage some of you, or that some of you might think this is all nonsense. Anybody can go anywhere, like nothing makes sense anymore. But that wouldn't be entirely true either. What I'm trying to tell you is, look at how random this is. Right? I did not know that I would go there. Now a lot of people say, oh, you're a very smart Harvard student. And I tell them, no, I was smart even 2 years before I joined Harvard. Like, going there did not make me smart. I mean, now people think that, but do you think I've become much smarter the minute I went there? Not really. Nothing really changed. Everything that was there inside me, and nobody thought that this guy is capable of anything big. Okay, some people did, but nobody thought that I would do a PhD. Nobody thought that I would do a PhD from Harvard. Nobody thought that I would do a PhD in anthropology from Harvard. Even today, my friends, sometimes, I meet my friends from SRCC and JNU, and some of them ask me, what is anthropology? Especially, because most of my friends from college, they're MBAs and accountants. Like, they don't know how to spell anthropology, I think. So, what I'm trying to tell you is this, that no matter what the situation is right now, you probably can do a lot more than you think is possible. So if you are like me, like I was several years ago, and you're thinking that, and now it's not possible, that, I went off on a different track, or I did this, or that I didn't read that one book 3 years ago, it doesn't matter. Okay, other than that, sorry, I'm looking at the time. So, I basically get questions from people every once in a while, like I get emails from random people. They ask me something like, I would like to get into Harvard, please give me some guidance. And usually, or sometimes people ask me like, what should I do to go to Harvard? And that's usually a bad question. Because the correct answer would be something like, take a plane, go to Boston. Because it's that vague, like, why would you want to go to Harvard? You first have to know why. Like, what will you do there? Do you want to do a master's, an undergraduate, a PhD? Do you want to just sweep the floors? Like, what is the point? So, which I'm coming back to, my initial point, that you should know what you want, firstly. And like I said, I did not know what I want, for the most part. But I've realized that you can start to do really powerful things when you know, and when you're really aligned with, what you believe. So, let's say one of you came up to me and said, you want to go to Harvard, I'd ask you why. And usually, you might say something like, because it's a very good university. Yeah, that's a very good university, but why should you go there? Because then, what is it, high status, and so what? Usually you should have a reason, and the reason should be a strong one. And once you have a strong reason, you'll find the motivation to do things. Again, actually, I'm not the best person to talk about success and all that, because I'm still a student, right? Even though I'm going to Harvard, I'm still a student, and there are people here who have achieved more. But since I get this question a lot, I thought I'll deal with it at least a little bit. So ask yourself, what is your reason? What do you want to do, and why do you want to do it? Take a paper and write that down. Because this will eventually become a part of what you call your statement of purpose. Because that's what the university is asking you anyways. The university wants to know, why do you want to go there? What do you want to do, and how will it help you? And what will you do with it in the end? So, before you go ahead and start contacting people, just ask yourself why you want to do it, what do you want to do? And the second thing is, I've said too many second things already, but and the other thing is that there's no very good reason to go to Harvard. I know it sounds good, and I'm here only because that's where I'm going. If I went to, say, University of Michigan, I might be just as clever. In fact, I might be smarter than some kids at Harvard, but it won't have the same effect. I know that. But look beyond that. Think about all the good universities, and you could go to any one of them. And where you want to go will depend on what you want to do after that, and what is your main purpose for that education. So sometimes there's a good reason, for example, some of you may just be interested in the brand, and that's not a bad thing. Although that's something that people try to discourage, especially at Harvard. They'll try to tell you, don't come to Harvard simply because it's Harvard, obviously. But you want to have a massive impact on society, it might actually open some doors for you. A lot of people will talk to me because, I'm going to this university, which is very famous. In fact, this story goes against the point that I'm trying to make, but I'll tell you the story anyway. So I met this history professor at Harvard once, and I was trying to talk to her about my research. I was thinking about what I should work on. Because back then I thought, why should every Dalit work on Dalit issues? I wanted to do something else, because they're willing to fund me. They would give me money to go anywhere in the world, to work on anything pretty much, as long as I can write a proper proposal. So I thought, let me go to some other country. So I decided to go to somewhere in Latin America. So I met this history professor who's a Latin Americanist. That's her area of expertise. So she told me, why don't you do an ethnography being a qualitative form of research, with all the presidents of Latin America. And I said, what, presidents? those are the people that I should work with, all the presidents? Like, are you joking? She said, don't underestimate the brand value of Harvard. She said that I write to all kinds of people and they respond to me. I've written to Nobel Prize winners and like presidents and they respond to me. Before I came to this university, that never happened. And before this, I was at Stanford. So, Stanford is one of the best universities in the world, hands down. And yet she's telling me that when she was at Harvard, people would not respond to her. I mean, when she was at Stanford, people wouldn't respond to her. And when she moved to Harvard, they do. So I understand the power of brand. But you have to know that it actually makes sense for you. So for example, if you want to be an engineer, there are places like MIT and Stanford and Princeton are known to be better. And you'll actually you'll go further as an engineer if you go to one of these places. So even though Harvard might have all its great brand value, there's no need to go there because that brand value is useless to you as an engineer. So even though you get a lot from that name recognition, just see this again. The reason I'm making this point is because it's very clear. People from disadvantaged communities are always looking for that significance. You know, they want those brands, they want those tags that will make us feel like, okay, now I'm worthy. And it'll definitely do something for your ego. But like I said, you have to realize that at some point this self-worth should not come from outside. It has to come from within you, otherwise it won't end. Once you get into Harvard, then you'll be like, okay, I need to win that fellowship, or I need to get that special postdoctoral fellowship, or I need to get that professorship. Because, you know, it's the same thing. It's just like running after money or fame or anything. But it's even worse because you'll never feel full until you achieve something, and you'll never achieve that thing because, you know, you didn't do it on the inside first. So, believe in yourself firstly, and then ask yourself why you want to do and what you want to do, and then you will know how to do it. And then when you have some doubts, we are all here to help you. So, the other thing, when people ask me about, so sometimes, you know, I'll just get like a request on Facebook, and I won't know who the person is. And I won't know, you know, why they're there. Sometimes it's just like they'll have a picture of a film star and they'll send me a request. Sometimes it's just students who genuinely want to ask me some questions, but how will I know who you are and what should I do with that? So if that's your first line of communication, that's not a good idea. That's why what we've done is, you know, I've given everybody my email address and I've said that if anyone wants to contact me, do so on email. And then people ask questions like, please give me some guidance. And that's also, it's not very good, because then what should I do? Sit down there and write like a 4-page essay on, you know, everything that you have to do, and then you might not even care. Like, you're excited, you'll send a 2-line email and then you'll forget about it. So sometimes people ask me things like, what should I do? I tell them, okay, do this. Go through the websites of the top 20 universities that you're interested in. And then you look at the requirements and get back to me. And 90% of the people don't get back. You know why? Because I told them a little bit of work to do, you know, like the most basic thing that you should do. So, while it is true that we don't have guidance, there's also a lot of information available on the internet, and it's available to everyone. So, start with that. Like, if you have access to the internet, use that. Look at several websites of the universities that you're interested in. Make a list of the requirements. Look at what they're asking, and then there are many other websites that will tell you things like, you know, how to write your statement of purpose, how to present your story better, and then there's so much free material available about, you know, how to take the GRE. And once you're done with that, you know, I bought like 2 books. One is the official book, the GRE book, and another one from another company. That's pretty much all you need. You don't need, like, you know, too much in terms of material and guidance and all that. The bigger issue is that you have that blockage inside. You believe that, you know, you want that excuse. I couldn't apply because, you know, I didn't know what to do. So that becomes the real reason why most of us don't do anything, because we'll look for something, we'll say, oh, I didn't find it, or I emailed Kanishka, he didn't respond, so I can't do anything now. So the thing is, do some of your own work, and then there will be confusion. Like I've had a lot of confusion. I couldn't even, when I looked at some of the websites, I could not tell if a program was a PhD program or a master's program, because they simply said graduate and I didn't know what was what. That will all happen, but when you look through like 20, 30 websites, it will become clearer. And then when you have more specific questions, you can write to us. We will try to like put together some, like a package so that everybody can go through that before asking other questions, because otherwise we'll have to tell everything to everybody. So we've already done that in some other forums, and we'll try to give you that information about that. But do some of your own homework, overcome that internal issues that you have, find the confidence that you need, and realize where you are at present. Don't underestimate yourself, don't be overconfident, but try to do an objective analysis of where you are, and then you can go from there. Alright, so I will be available for questions, and you can ask me anything after this. Thank you.